How did a MasterChef contestant turn from cooking to killing, becoming one of Britain's most evil? Keep watching as I investigate Stephen Parr, aka the Grindr Killer. This killer's story begins in 1975. Stephen Parr was born on the 22nd of February of that year in Southend-on-Sea, Essex, southern England. It wasn't long after he was born that the family relocated to Dagenham in East London. His father worked as a cleaner for the local council and his mother worked at a supermarket checkout. Growing up, he was described as a loner and very quiet. At school, he would experience relentless bullying that would of course enhance the loner in him. After leaving school, he attended art college when he was 16 years old, but with it being too expensive for him, he soon dropped out and spent a couple of years training as a chef instead. In his mid-20s, he came out as gay. He continued to live with his parents until his early 30s and then left the nest to move into his own flat on Cook Street in Barking, London. He supported himself by working as a chef at a bus depot in West Ham, and he made a brief appearance on the television show MasterChef. People would describe Parr as having an unusual childlike personality and would play with children's toys. Parr claimed to have graduated from the prestigious Oxford University, served in the Royal Navy and been a special needs teacher. However, there is no evidence to back any of these claims up. In fact, his parents said that Parr was lying about all of that. His dating life was adventurous to say the least. Men he was in previous relationships with before he became the Grindr Killer reported that he would use the party illicit substance GHB on the regular, and this is most commonly known on dates where administrators of this drug will use it on their unsuspecting victims to do the most harm. He was a prolific cheater and would work as either a male escort or act as their pimp. When his computers and electronics were searched, it was found that he watched nasty drug intimacy videos. He was an avid user of the dating app Grindr and would use this app as a means of ensnaring his victims. After meeting his victims through Grindr, he would film himself having intimate relations with other men who were not fully aware of their surroundings, if you get my drift. To get his victims in such a vulnerable state, he would spike their drinks or inject them with illicit substances. Throughout his reign of terror, 12 men are said to have been attacked by Parr. 4 of these victims would meet their fatal end between 2012 and 2015. During this period, as the birth of dating apps emerged, so too did the birth of the Grindr Killer. June 2014, Stephen Parr would come into contact with his first victim, Anthony Walgate, a 23-year-old fashion student who had dreams of becoming a famous menswear fashion designer. To reach this dream, he did what he had to do in order to financially support himself, and this meant sometimes working as an escort. Walgate caught the eye of Parr, who offered the budding designer £800 to stay with him overnight. This would not be a date with another human being. Instead, it would turn out to be a date with death for the young Walgate. On the 19th of June 2014, at 4:18 a.m, the emergency services received an anonymous report, which later turned out to be from Parr himself, stating that Walgate had collapsed on Cook Street. The paramedics wasted no time rushing to the scene, where they were to find Walgate's lifeless body outside Parr's house, positioned against a wall, slumped over, dead. The Grindr Killer had been born and was nearly stopped in his tracks there and then. He was brought in for questioning by the authorities, and they soon found out that his statement just didn't add up. further digging uncovered the fact that Stephen Port was lying when he claimed that he had not hired Walgate as an escort. Uncovering this lie, he was charged with perverting the court of justice. However, Walgate's death was not treated as suspicious. Instead, the investigators put it down as an accidental fatal OD of the illicit substance GHB. The authorities had unleashed Stephen Port into the world on bail, which would give him the opportunity to kill again and again and again. 22-year-old Gabriel Cavari was living in Spain with his boyfriend Thierry Amodio before he decided to move to London after finishing university in 2014. He had hopes of finding work as a translator within the police force or the health service. His housemate John Pape would describe Cavari as a smart, intelligent, considerate, creative, talented young guy, but tragically, he was denied using his talents to fulfill his dreams by the Grindr killer. Cavari would relocate a final time into Port's flat on the 23rd of August 2014. He would tell his friends that Port was strange, but that it didn't matter as he was living there rent-free. This would be the worst judgment call Cavari would make in his short lifetime. The day after he moved in, Cavari would send a text to a nearby neighbour saying, "Stephen is not a nice person." He would receive a reply from the neighbour asking how he was doing, but the response he got was, "Gone to stay with some soldier guy he'd been chatting to online." On the 27th of August, only a few days after Cavari moved in, Port called the victim's sister Sharon to say there was a dead body in his bedroom. She urged him to go to the police, but it wasn't until 24 hours later that Cavari's body was chillingly found in the churchyard at St. Margaret's by a local dog walker. And just like the first victim, Cavari was placed right next to where Stephen Port lived, a mere 0.2 miles away. The similarities didn't end there, and the incompetence of the authorities continued, as they also deemed Cavari's death as not suspicious and simply another awful case of a tragic, deathly OD of GHB. Working as a chef in swanky Canary Wharf, 21-year-old Daniel Whitworth was living a happy life with his long-term boyfriend Ricky Wormsley. Whitworth encountered Stephen Port on another dating site called Fit Lads on the 18th of August 2014. It wasn't until 1 month later that they met up. On the 19th of September, Whitworth's boyfriend reported him as missing to the authorities when he didn't show up for work. Whitworth's body was found less than a month after the second victims, in the same churchyard, with illicit substance bottles scattered around him. However, different from the first two victims, here Whitworth's body was found with a note. And the note said he was having some fun at a mate's house, and he got carried away and got another shot of GHB. The note explained that he had OD'd himself on sleeping pills and GHB out of guilt because he had been taking GHB with the second victim, Cavari, and didn't notice while he was having intimate relations that he stopped breathing. Strangely enough, it then takes on a pleading tone with the reader, saying, "Please, do not blame the guy I was with last night. We only had intimate relations, and then I left. He knows nothing of what I have done." With the note in the hands of the investigators, shockingly, they took it at face value and did not read between the lines. They did not conduct any in-depth investigations into the letter, just to determine who the true author of it was. In addition, they did no further investigations on the body of Whitworth. No DNA samples or fingerprints were taken. Instead, it was simply ruled as another accidental GHB OD that had claimed the life of another man in the area. Yet again, Stephen Port had gotten away with murder, and due to the pure incompetence of the authorities, he became ever emboldened to ensnare and kill his final and fourth victim. Living with his parents at 25 years old, Jack Taylor from Dagenham was gay. However, the majority of his friends and family were unaware of this. On the 12th of September 2015, he went out drinking at the Trading Club in Dagenham. When he got back in the early hours of the 13th of September, his father was still awake and he sweetly wished him a good night. However, he would not go to sleep. Instead, a few moments later, Taylor would be heading out for the door again. He had met Port on the Grindr app and was going out to meet him. With aspirations of becoming a police officer, his life would be tragically cut short by Stephen Port, and he would be found on the 15th of September 2015 in the same churchyard as Gabriel Cavari and Daniel Whitworth. The police yet again ruled his death as an accidental OD on GHB. But his family knew that Taylor was against drugs and he wanted to be in the police force. Even beyond that, as a forklift driver, he had to submit to regular drug tests, and he would pass with flying colours each and every time he had a test. So how did a young lad with an anti-drug stance and a history of proof that he didn't take drugs all of a sudden end up dead in a churchyard due to an OD on GHB? With these questions unanswered, Taylor's sisters decided to fight back. Becoming real-life Sherlock Holmes, Taylor's sisters were able to piece together the information that the police repeatedly did not, and they were able to link all 4 victims to Stephen Port, the Grindr killer. They were continually dismissed by the police, but their fight for justice would not be dampened, and their efforts would end up not being in vain. Their persistence would ultimately pay off, and the police would actually start doing their job properly. Detectives found CCTV of Taylor hours before he was killed. They released one of the CCTV images to the public in hopes of trying to identify the man Taylor was seen with in the still. They received several calls from members of the public. However, it was a local police officer that came forward and was able to positively identify Stephen Port with Taylor in the CCTV image. Finally, armed with the evidence they needed, on the 15th of October 2015, the Grindr killer was arrested on suspicion of causing the deaths of all 4 of his victims by administering poison. And after being interrogated for a total of 4 days, on the 18th of October, Stephen Port was charged with 4 counts of murder. The trial took place at the legendary Old Bailey in June 2016, and Port was charged with 4 counts of murder, 6 counts of administering poison, and a mixture of 11 charges of non-consensual intimate relations varying in degrees of severity. He also faced 4 alternative charges of manslaughter. From HM Prison Belmarsh, Port appeared by video link and submitted a not guilty plea to all the charges against him. After months of the prosecution and the defence presenting their cases, on the 23rd of November 2016, Stephen Port was found guilty on all counts. Commenting on the case, the Deputy Chief Crown Prosecutor for London, Malcolm McAfee, said, "Over a period of 3 years, the defendant committed a series of murders and serious intimate offences against young men. Port manipulated and controlled these men through the chilling and calculated use of the illicit substance GHB, which he administered without their permission. This was a technically challenging case, complicated by a significant amount of evidence taken from the numerous social media sites that Port used. Given the ultimate evil nature of his crimes, the judge, Mr. Justice Openshaw, sentenced Port to the maximum possible to remain in prison for the rest of his life with a whole life order." Port started serving his sentence at HMP Belmarsh in South London. However, it's been claimed that he has since been moved to an undisclosed different jail. He is only just one of 60 prisoners within Britain who is serving a whole life sentence, which means that the Grindr killer will meet his end and die behind bars. Now, he may have started out as a shy, quiet, loner child who was bullied at school, but Stephen Port would end up becoming one of Britain's most evil. If you liked this and want more, then make sure you subscribe to join our Alter Nerd tribe, like, share, comment, all of that good stuff, and until the next time, you guys, laters.